An urban legend is basically a creepy ghost or monster story that has been passed down for generations. Often, this Kentucky lore is used during youth to test our bravery and likely stupidity. Many involve places that can be dangerous without safety precautions and sometimes with. Some are just based on the occasional apparition, and one goes back to the days of Daniel Boone. Here are some of the creepiest urban legends from the Bluegrass State, Kentucky. The place known today as Hot Rod Haven is actually a winding and twisting stretch of road called Mitchell Hill Road. Years ago, it used to be a popular spot for teenagers to go and test their racing skills in their cars. That all ended when two teenagers did not come back alive. Back in 1946, a young woman named Sarah Mitchell and her date Roy Clark were on their way to a dance. As they were coming down the hill, Clark lost control of the car and crashed at the curve. Both teenagers were killed on impact. Since that time, reports claim that the girl's ghost has been seen wandering up the roadway and aimlessly strolling the cemetery at the top of the hill. Over the years, many drivers have seen the apparition on the road at night. People were once, and some still are, a very suspicious lot. In the late 1900s, small-town folk could be the worst. In the rural county of Marion lies a small town called Pilot's Knob. In the 1900s, a woman and her 6-year-old daughter were accused of witchcraft, but their trial was forgone. Instead, the townsfolk burned them both at the stake. They feared the repercussions of their judgment and took precautions to prevent the child from returning. The child lays in a steel-lined grave, but dirt was replaced with concrete and gravel. They then put an interconnecting cross fence so that her spirit would be trapped within the borders. Today, the fence is wrought iron and has several spots that look to be pushed out from the inside by a powerful force. Small footprints can often be seen in the gravel as well, according to those who visited the site. The child witch can supposedly pull people down into her grave. Local residents seem fearful of this place, and rightfully so. Deep in Kentucky's forests, something stirs. Legend or reality? Part cryptid, part urban legend, the hillbilly beast of Kentucky has become a strange part of local lore. How does the monster look? Well, no one knows for sure. Descriptions vary from one eyewitness to another, but the story remains consistent. A bizarre creature hiding deep into the woods, howling at the moon, and keeping locals glancing nervously over their shoulders. So, what is this mysterious beast, and why has its story persisted for generations? The hillbilly beast of Kentucky is an urban legend similar to Bigfoot. If you travel through Kentucky and have the chance to stop and ask people about local lore, they will most likely tell you about a mysterious creature that allegedly roams the hills of eastern Kentucky near the Ohio River. Many will not be able to describe it to you. However, those who claim to have seen it will likely describe it as a large, hulking beast, often compared to the more well-known Bigfoot. Witnesses claim it is anywhere between 8 to 10 feet, 2.4 to 3.0 meters, tall and covered in dark fur. Its eyes? Glowing black, shining orange during the night. Pretty creepy, right? Estimates suggest the creature could weigh over 800 pounds, or 362.8 kilograms, given its massive frame and reported physical power. It's also known for its foul odor, a stench somewhere between rotting meat and skunk spray. But one of its most distinctive characteristics is its vocalizations. Deep, guttural howls, shouts, and tree banging echoing through the forests at night. It strikes fear into anyone who dares to venture too close. The hillbilly beast of Kentucky bears a striking resemblance to other cryptids, like Bigfoot or the Wampus Cat. Some say it's just another regional version of the famous Bigfoot, but it's got traits that make it unique. For instance, unlike Bigfoot, which tends to avoid humans, the hillbilly beast is more aggressive. Over time, locals blame the monster for numerous attacks on livestock, campsite raids, and terrifying tourists with its howls. Its aggressiveness suggests an almost territorial behavior. Believe it or not, the hillbilly beast of Kentucky legend stretches back to the early days of the first settlements, even as far back as Daniel Boone's time. Boone, an American pioneer, explorer, and frontiersman, played a significant role in exploring and settling Kentucky in the late 18th century. He was known for his expeditions and his ability to survive in the wilderness. In short, he was an adventurer and someone well familiarized with the wildlife. And when someone like this tells you something strange lurks in the woods, you tend to believe him. The whole hillbilly beast of Kentucky craze started after Boone told of killing a, quote, 10-foot hairy giant, which he called a Yahoo. The name he gave the monster was based on hairy man-like creatures mentioned in Gulliver's Travels, written by Jonathan Swift. Now, the early settlers of Kentucky were a superstitious bunch. They were venturing into unfamiliar territory, encountering strange sights and sounds they couldn't explain. So Boone's story stuck with them, and more alleged sightings added even more fuel to the fire. But can those early sightings be considered reliable? Could encounters with bears or elk have been misinterpreted and later embellished? Remember a couple of months ago when I uploaded my Indiana Urban Legends video when I talked about a cryptid called the Green-Clawed Beast? I briefly mentioned this event because they both coincidentally took place on the same day. Well, now I'm going to tell you the story of this encounter. The story goes that on the evening of August 21st, 1955, 5 adults and 7 children arrived at the Hopkinsville police station, claiming that small alien creatures from a spaceship were attacking their farmhouse, and they had been holding them off with gunfire, quote, for nearly 4 hours, unquote. 2 of the adults, Elmer Sutton and Billy Ray Taylor, claimed they had been shooting at, quote, 12 to 15, unquote, short, dark figures who repeatedly popped up at the doorway or peered into the windows. Concerned about a possible gun battle between local citizens, 4 city police, 5 state troopers, 3 deputy sheriffs, and 4 military police from the nearby U.S. Army Fort Campbell drove to the Sutton farmhouse located near the town of Kelly in Christian County. Their search yielded nothing apart from evidence of gunfire and holes in window and door screens made by firearms. Residents of the farmhouse included Glennie Langford, her children Lonnie, Carlton, and Mary, 2 sons from a previous marriage, Elmer Lucky Sutton, John Charlie, J.C. Sutton, and their respective wives, Vera and Aileen, Aileen's brother, O.P. Baker, and Billy Ray Taylor and his wife, June. Both the Taylors, Lucky, and Vera Sutton were reportedly itinerant carnival workers that were visiting the farmhouse. The next day, neighbors told 2 officers that the families had, quote, packed up and left, unquote, after claiming, quote, the creatures had returned about 3:30 in the morning, unquote. The family's claims received widespread coverage in local and national press. Early articles did not refer to little green men. The color was later added to some newspaper stories. Estimates of the size of the alleged creatures varied from 2 feet to 4 feet, and details such as, quote, large pointed ears, claw-like hands, eyes that glowed yellow, and spindly legs, unquote, later appeared in various media. Psychologists Rodney Schmaltz and Scott Lilienfeld cite the alleged incident as an example of pseudoscience and an quote-unquote extraordinary claim to help students develop critical thinking skills. It is plausible, if not likely, that the aliens were great horned owls, and there is some evidence that the eyewitnesses may have been intoxicated during the alien attack. Nickel, 2006. Schmaltz, 2017. Committee for Skeptical Inquiry member and skeptic Joe Nickel notes that the family could have misidentified eagle owls or great horned owls, which are nocturnal, fly silently, have yellow eyes, and aggressively defend their nests. According to Nickel, meteor sightings also occurred at the time that could explain Billy Ray Taylor's claim that he saw a, quote, bright light streak across the sky and disappear beyond a tree line some distance from the house, unquote. According to author Brian Dunning, quote, there are simply too many similarities between the creatures reported by the families and an aggressive pair of the local great horned owls, which do stand about 2/3 of a meter tall, unquote. French ufologist Renaud Leclerc also argued in a publication that the explanation of the case is great horned owls. Ufologist Jerome Clark writes that the supposed creatures, quote-unquote, floated through the trees, and the sound of bullets striking them, quote, resembled bullets striking a metal bucket, unquote. Clark describes, quote, an odd luminous patch along a fence where one of the beings had been shot, and, in the woods beyond, a green light whose source could not be determined, unquote. However, this description was consistent with foxfire, a bioluminescent fungus on decaying wood. Clark also wrote that investigations by, quote, police, Air Force officers from nearby Fort Campbell, and civilian ufologists found no evidence of a hoax, unquote. However, Brian Dunning reports that, quote, the claim that Air Force investigators showed up the next day at Mrs. Langford's house has been published a number of times by later authors, but I could find no corroborating evidence of this, unquote. Dunning also observes that, quote, the 4 military police who accompanied the police officers on the night of the event were from an army base, not an Air Force base. Some ufologists compared the alleged creatures to gremlins, which have since often been referred to as the Hopkinsville goblins in popular culture. Ufologist Alan Hendry wrote, quote, this case is distinguished by its duration and also by the number of witnesses involved, unquote. Project Police Book listed the case as a hoax with no further comment. The Bluegrass State is big on history, with plenty of local lore and legends mixed in for good measure too. One of the most infamous and chilling legends in Kentucky that's been passed down in hushed whispers around campfires is that of the Pope Lick Monster. The Pope Lick Monster, or Goat Man as he's colloquially referred, is a beast that's part man, part goat, and part sheep. He's reported to live beneath a railroad trestle bridge under Kentucky's Pope Lick Creek, a location that's seen more than its fair share of tragedy and sorrow throughout the years. Lore and legends abound in the Bluegrass State, with none quite as chilling as the legend of the Pope Lick Monster, a story that's inextricably linked to its surroundings. Just outside of Louisville in eastern Jefferson County, the Norfolk Southern Railroad runs right through the parklands of Floyd's Park, and it's within this particular stretch of trestle that the Pope Lick Monster is said to reside. Part man, part goat, and part sheep, rumors of a hideous beast roaming around the Pope Lick trestle have been swirling for quite some time. The most well-known version of the story is that a goatman hybrid who lives on top of the trestle, using hypnosis or voice mimicry to lure victims to the top. Some people say a train then comes and strikes the victim, while others suggest that the sight of the monster is so disturbing that they are driven to the top of the 100-foot trestle, to their deaths. There is a misconception that the Pope Lick trestle is abandoned and no longer in use. However, in reality, the bridge carries a major rail artery into Louisville. Heavy freight trains cross the bridge several times daily, making it all too easy for someone to get caught atop it while an oncoming train barrels down on them. a tragedy that sadly happened before. In fact, the Norfolk Southern Railway has urged citizens not to climb the trestle, threatening arrest for intrepid trespassers. A street runs underneath the bridge too, and another version of the story has the monster pouncing on passing cars. The Popelick Monster in Kentucky is one of the best known legends in the state, and also one of the most dangerous. While it's fascinating to talk about, I absolutely do not recommend putting yourself in danger to see for yourself if this legend is true. Narrows Road in Erlanger, Kentucky is supposedly where a ghostly police officer likes to hang out. According to urban legend, while making a traffic stop here sometime in the 50s, he was struck and killed by a passing car. So now, if you drive along Narrows Road after midnight, or at exactly midnight in some tellings, a 1950s style police cruiser will appear and pull you over. Some versions of the legend say the officer will then come to your car, speak to you, then disappear after walking away, while others say he disappears before reaching you. Sounds pretty cool. If only all cops disappeared like this after stopping you. However, according to the local police, there has never been an officer killed on Narrows Road. So unless he's way out of his jurisdiction, I wouldn't worry about it. Be more concerned with the living police. There is a police/fire station located here. One end of Narrows Road dead ends, and is said to be a hangout for kids and sometimes drug use, so it's patrolled regularly. But hey, if you really want to find the Phantom Officer, go check it out. And maybe take extra donuts with you just in case. Iroquois Park is a 739-acre park in Louisville, Kentucky. It was designed by Frederick Law Cherokee and Shawnee Parks at what were then the edges of the city. Located south of downtown, Iroquois Park was promoted as Louisville's version of Yellowstone, being incorporated in 1888. The park is made up of a knob rising 250 feet, covered with old-growth forest. The park's most prominent feature is a scenic viewpoint atop the hill, known to many as Lookout Point. However, as you hike Iroquois Park's winding trails on a serene, crisp night, you might start to notice the sound of a dog barking wildly. Then a thick fog will roll in from nowhere, partially obstructing your vision. It's then that you smell it. The stench of smoke and fire begins to rise in the air. The fog breaks momentarily, and it's then that you notice a figure approaching. By most accounts of her, she appears dressed in early 1800s settlement clothes, and as she walks through the park, you can see her holding her head in her hands as blood drips from the severed neck. This tale has been passed for years from one generation to the next. Each telling no doubt makes it that much more gruesome. It is said that she is regularly seen particularly close to Lookout Point. Many also wonder how she came to spend eternity roaming the moonlit paths that encompass the park. Some suspect that she is the ghost of a farmer's wife who settled with her husband in the area where the park is now located. As the story goes, one night while her husband was downtown on business, an Indian tribe attempted to sneak up on the homestead and ransack it. They first silenced the family dog by slitting its throat. They then rushed into the house and caught the woman unawares. Grabbing her as she screamed, they beheaded her and left her for dead. The Indians promptly set fire to the house in an attempt to cover up what they had done. Is the Headless ghost that very woman? Is she seeking justice for her murder at the hands of the Indians? I would, however, not recommend taking that late-night stroll through Iroquois Park. The Cody Road Bridge in northern Kentucky is a railroad bridge that runs over Cody Road, right at the point where a creek runs under the road. So you have the bridge running above you, and the road dips somewhat below it. With the creek and low road, this area is prone to flooding when the creek rises. Flooding here is such a common occurrence, swinging gates have been permanently placed on either side of the creek, marked with stop signs, to be closed whenever the waters start to rise. The legends of this area revolve around a woman that was killed in one of the following fashions, depending on who you ask. 1. Committing suicide by either jumping in front of an oncoming train on the bridge or by jumping from the bridge. 2. Running for help from her burning home that was near the bridge, but getting hit by a train in the process. 3. By getting caught in the current when the road quickly flooded below the bridge, either while in her car or while walking. Reports from this area are often of a woman in white walking the bridge, sometimes crying, others say yelling for help. Orbs, phantom trains, and disembodied voices are also reported here. Some locals refer to the phantom as Pigface, supposedly referring to her injuries after going head-to-head with the train. Be careful out there when checking out Cody Road. It's pitch black at night, and not much room to park. Make sure you ask for Pigface. This isn't the old Headless Horseman tale we all know and love. There's actually a road that begins in Jefferson County and crosses into Oldham County near Louisville, Kentucky. It's a 2-lane highway covered with a canopy of thick trees, with a hill to its side with more than a 30-foot drop. The legend is that as you travel down Sleepy Hollow Road at night, a set of headlights will slowly appear in your rearview mirror out of nowhere. The headlights will get closer and closer. If you slow down, the vehicle never passes you. If you speed up, it keeps up with you, but will suddenly start to pass you on the huge turns. That's when you see the car. A large black hearse with all blacked out windows. If you're lucky, it goes on ahead, but for most folks, it rams you off the road and down into the ravine below. The second legend with this road involves a bridge and multiple babies. The bridge was called the Crybaby Bridge. The legend goes that women would take their unwanted babies and toss them off the side of the bridge there. The bridge is supposedly gone now, but it's said if you drive down this road at night with your windows down and radio off, you might hear babies crying out for their mothers. The Waverly Hills Sanatorium is one whose name rings more than a few bells. Well known in the ghost hunting community, the former sanatorium is located in Louisville, Kentucky. Opening its doors in the early 1900s, the sanatorium was created to house the growing number of white plague patients, or those suffering from tuberculosis. Like many other sanatoriums of its time and purpose, Waverly Hills closed its doors due to the use of the antibiotic drug streptomycin, which lowered the need for such a hospital. Originally, the plan was to turn it into a hotel, but obviously that is no longer the case. The land that the asylum was built on, known as Waverly Hill, was purchased by Major Thomas H. Hayes in 1883 and was the Hayes family home. Since the new home was far from any schools, Major Hayes opened his very own local school for his daughters to attend. He started a one-room schoolhouse on Pages Lane and hired a woman named Lizzie Harris as the teacher. Due to her fondness for Walter Scott's Waverly novels, she called the schoolhouse Waverly School. Major Hayes liked the name. He said it had a peaceful sound and decided to also name his property Waverly Hill. The Board of Tuberculosis kept the name when they bought the land and opened the sanatorium. The second E was dropped at some point in history, but it's not exactly clear when. In the early 1900s, Jefferson County was stricken with an outbreak of tuberculosis. Many of these cases in Louisville at the time were centralized along the wetlands of the Ohio River. The moist, humid environment was a perfect breeding ground for the tuberculosis bacteria. To try and contain the disease, a 2-story wooden sanatorium was opened, which featured open-air pavilions, each housing 20 patients for the treatment of early cases. As the need for more space grew, the city of Louisville began to prepare to build a new Louisville City Hospital. And the hospital commissioners decided in their plans that there would be no provision in the new city hospital for the admission of tuberculosis patients, which prompted the Board of Tuberculosis to erect a hospital specially for the care of advanced cases of pulmonary tuberculosis. In the summer of 1912, all tuberculosis patients from the city hospital were relocated to temporary quarters and tents on the grounds of Waverly Hills, as they awaited the finish of the sanatorium. Not entirely bad news, considering that the belief was that fresh air was the best treatment for tuberculosis at the time. Since antibiotics did not exist alongside the sanatorium's tenure, other forms of aid were used to treat patients, such as heat lamps, fresh air, and positive reassurance. Prior to the development of a vaccine, treatments for tuberculosis ranged from harmless to completely barbaric. Some treatments were brutal, and in some cases, patients had their lungs surgically resected or partially removed and collapsed in order to let the organ rest. Because of the highly contagious nature of the disease, Waverly Hills Sanatorium enacted extreme quarantine measures and the asylum functioned as an island, producing its own food, raising its own animals, and even ran a functioning post office. Tunnels were built on the first floor of the sanatorium and were used as an entrance and exit for the staff of the asylum. 500 feet of corridors lined the asylum. Once only meant for worker travel, ended up being used to transport corpses of the dead from inside the asylum, since the sight of the dead being carried away lowered patient morale. Doctors at the asylum also believed that using the tunnels would help to lower the disease's spreading rate. The sanatorium had more than a couple of plans laid out for its future after its closure in June of 1961, such as apartment homes, a geriatric center, and even a prison. Today, the sanatorium is owned by a private investor who opens the building up for tours and overnight guests. The tours also aim to preserve the history of the asylum, telling the stories of the patients who died there. Nearly 50,000 people died at the sanatorium. The dead were transported out of the hospital using a 537-foot long tunnel that led straight to Dixie Highway. Countless haunted stories have come out of the sanatorium, including one about a nurse who committed suicide there, as well as a young boy named Tim. Shadow figures, disembodied screams and laughs, as well as full-bodied apparitions are also reported by visitors and staff. Known as one of the most haunted places on Earth, Waverly Hills Sanatorium has no shortage of unexplained happenings. The Waverly Hills Sanatorium was left to decay before it was placed on the Register of Historic Places. The abandoned asylum gained its infamous reputation quickly, and reports from visitors and investigators cemented the building's sinister status. In 2001, Charles and Tina Mattingly purchased the property and began to restore it. Volunteers soon started to have their own encounters, telling of slamming doors and sightings of a mysterious man in white drifting around the halls of the hospital. Others had run-ins with Tim, a boy that likes to play ball with visitors. The hallways of the sanatorium are seeping in melancholy energy. While many patients recovered from their illness here, just as many others died, breathing their final painful breaths within the walls of the hospital. A couple of visitors from spiritual travels visited the sanatorium and told of their experiences there. Quote, "As we entered the 5th floor, a friend in the group whispered to me that he suddenly felt an oppressive weight. 'Do you feel anything?' he asked. "Not a thing," I whispered back. But then our guide corroborated my friend's intuition by explaining that a great deal of paranormal activity had been reported in this room over the years, perhaps connected to the suicide of a nurse that had occurred here many years ago. Unquote. So, who was this nurse? Research into her life and her death did not turn up many answers, and her suicide within the walls cannot be confirmed. It would be no surprise, however, as the nurses that worked here bore witness to unspeakable amounts of pain and suffering. It's too much for any human mind to bear. Regardless, Waverly Hills Sanatorium remains one of the world's most haunted places, and one of America's most haunted hospitals. The deaths that occurred in the past here echo into the future, creating a perfect thunderstorm for ghostly activity and inexplicable occurrences. Have you ever visited Waverly Hills Sanatorium? Nestled in the small town of Wilder, Kentucky, Bobby Mackey's music world is far from your average honky-tonk. While it's known as a vibrant country music nightclub, its history and eerie reputation have earned it a place in paranormal lore, attracting not only country music lovers, but also ghost hunters, thrill seekers, and supernatural enthusiasts from around the world. Opened in 1978 by country singer Bobby Mackey, the venue became an instant hit for live music, drawing in large crowds with its dance hall atmosphere, neon lights, and lively spirit. But long before Mackey took ownership, the building had a much darker past. Originally constructed in the 1850s, the site housed a slaughterhouse and meat packing plant, with reports suggesting that the building's basement contained a well used for draining animal blood. After the plant shut down in the 1890s, the building went through various transformations, from a roadhouse to a speakeasy, and eventually to the nightclub it is today. However, what makes Bobby Mackey's music world so infamous are the many legends and stories that have circulated about its haunted history. The venue's motto, "Come for the ghosts, stay for the music," hints at its dual identity, one of country music and paranormal intrigue. One of the most notorious stories with the site is the 1896 murder of Pearl Bryan, a young woman from a wealthy family whose decapitated body was found just a few miles from the slaughterhouse. Her head was never recovered, and rumors swirled that it was disposed of in the basement well. The two men convicted of her murder, Scott Jackson and Alonzo Walling, were believed to have dabbled in occult practices, further fueling the theory that Pearl's spirit lingers in the area. Some paranormal enthusiasts believe that the well in the basement, often referred to as the portal to hell, is a gateway for malevolent spirits. There have been numerous claims of strange occurrences in this area, from disembodied voices to objects moving on their own. According to legend, some believe that demonic forces were unleashed during occult rituals, and they continue to haunt the building to this day. Another ghost said to wander Bobby Mackey's music world is that of Joanna, a dancer at the club in the 1950s. According to legend, Joanna fell in love with a singer who performed at the club, but her father disapproved of the relationship. In a fit of jealousy, her father allegedly had the singer killed, which led Joanna to take her own life in the building's dressing room. Many visitors claim to have experienced encounters with Joanna's spirit, feeling her presence or hearing her singing softly in the background. Over the years, Bobby Mackey's music world has garnered a reputation as one of the most haunted places in America. Staff members, patrons, and paranormal investigators alike have reported unsettling experiences within its walls. Some describe feeling cold spots or being touched by unseen hands. Others claim to have seen apparitions or heard unexplained footsteps and voices. The venue has caught the attention of various paranormal investigation shows, including Ghost Adventures and Paranormal Lockdown. Investigators often come equipped with high-tech tools, hoping to capture evidence of supernatural activity. From strange EVPs, electronic voice phenomena, to shadowy figures captured on video, the reports seem endless. Despite the haunted reputation, Bobby Mackey himself has remained somewhat skeptical of the paranormal activity in his establishment. Although he acknowledges that his club has an eerie past and that others have had unexplainable experiences, Mackey prefers to focus on the music and good times his venue offers. However, his wife Janet claims to have had several terrifying encounters in the building, including being forcefully pushed by an unseen force. Today, Bobby Mackey's Music World continues to be a popular destination for both country music fans and paranormal enthusiasts. Its blend of live music, dancing, and ghostly legends make it a truly unique venue. Whether you're looking to enjoy a night of honky-tonk tunes or hoping to catch a glimpse of the supernatural, Bobby Mackey's offers an experience like no other. For those brave enough, guided ghost tours are available, allowing visitors to explore the building's most haunted areas, including the infamous basement well. And if you're lucky, or unlucky, you might just encounter one of the spirits that call this legendary nightclub home.